What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and today I'm coming at you again with another exciting episode. As you know, if you've listened to the show before, I love to talk with current and former athletes of both amateur and professional status. And today I am turning to professional baseball. However, I have a little bit of a twist in store for you guys. Not only is my guest today a former minor league pitcher for the Mariners, Pirates, and Diamondbacks organizations, but now he is a fellow sports podcaster himself. Please welcome to the show the host of the Too Tall Sports podcast, Mr. Brett Lorin. Brett, how you doing today, man?
I'm great. Great intro. I really appreciate it. Glad to be on with you, Brian. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad to have you here today. It's a blast. For anyone that kind of wonders, I actually ended up finding Brett through TikTok. That's actually how I kind of first came across your content and your page. And then I decided to reach out to you on Instagram to get this whole thing going. And it's unfortunately TikTok is becoming the bane of my existence because I'm realizing that I kind of have to use it to be able to grow a platform. But like all the sports creators on it, I love it. It's just all the other stuff in between where you're just watching some of the stuff go on. You're like, God, man. It's tough, but man, I gotta say, I love your content over on TikTok, as I do one of my other friend, Joel Flams, and it's amazing to have you on the show today. Let me just say this also. I heard the name Too Tall Sports Podcast, and I was like, okay, I in my mind, a lot of people like, oh, just over like 6 foot will just be like, oh yeah, I'm tall. I looked you up, man. You're 6'7".
Yeah, that's why I named it that.
That's insane, bro.
And by the way, thank you for following me on TikTok. You know, I'm 34 years old, so I'm a little older than the average TikToker. However, once I started getting comfortable sharing my content on there, it was just, I got great stories from the minor leagues and all that stuff. So I appreciate you following and checking me out.
Yeah, Brett, I might consider myself too old for TikTok now, just seeing some of the stuff that goes on there. But nah, man, it's a blast, and I'm starting to try to get into it myself. It's kind of a bit of a touch and go thing, so I'm gonna have to see how that goes. Sure. But man, I'm excited to talk to you today, both about personally your career in general, and then we're gonna dive into some sports stuff later on in the NFL later on in the show. So first things first, you were able to get to professional baseball, and you were able to play in the minor leagues. I think I saw in your Pro Baseball Reference you're able to get up between double and triple A at one point. So you actually had a very successful career in terms of professional baseball. But I kind of wonder, for yourself personally, how did this all begin? Like, where did you first really get into baseball and hone your love for that game?
Yeah, I mean, just like most kids started playing, T-ball, little league, all that stuff. But I was actually a basketball player as well. So that's kind of also
go figure.
Right. Using my height for something. I didn't reach 6'7" until I was a junior and senior year in high school. But before that, I was always tall for my age. But at heart, I'm a hooper at heart, man. I love basketball. It's my favorite sport. But as I got older, I played both all 4 years of high school. So I didn't want to leave one behind. Yeah. But after my senior year of high school, I made a kind of a business decision to go with baseball because I just thought it would be a better chance for me to play in college and hopefully professionally. Yeah. I had a couple D2 offers for basketball, and I was able to walk on as a D1 baseball player. So I was like, all right, I could go to college and play basketball for a little bit, and that's probably it. Or I can go try to play baseball and see what I got here. So that's kind of why I chose baseball after high school.
Yeah, I was about to say, being able to reach 6'7", even if you were like 6 foot in high school, you still got a better shot. I mean, listen, I kind of just, you're always going to have a bit of a shot there. I wouldn't surprise me one bit when you said you were a former basketball player.
Yeah, it's nice being a 6'7" pitcher, though. I'll tell you that.
Oh, that's got to be great. That's kind of what Chris Sale has always kind of prided himself on. That height is just amazing. So obviously you had a ton of, natural abilities that you had within yourself. But when you got on the baseball field, was it something that always kind of came natural to you, or maybe was your height kind of a detriment and maybe you had to kind of work at your craft to get to where you were? How did you, how did you develop?
Yeah, I think I always had a great arm. So that's something I just knew how to throw. And one of my little league coaches was a former big leaguer. So I got really lucky in that regard that as soon as I started pitching, I was able to get my mechanics right. I learned how to throw a curveball the right way early. So I was lucky enough to have a guy that had experience in the big leagues teach me how to pitch at 12 years old.
That's amazing.
And that, it really was. It helped my career. And I wasn't much of a hitter. So once I started focusing on pitching, I zoned in on that, and it was pretty good, man. I had some success. Yeah. So I just followed through with pitching.
That's amazing. So, obviously having a former big leaguer be able to, teach you the ways and be able to show you how to get there is an amazing thing. Were there any other individuals like outside of that you would probably want to, kind of say led to some of your success later on?
I mean, yeah, sure. My dad, he played junior college baseball, didn't play that high a level, but he played enough. And, he taught me some things, but, parents can only take you so far. So, I got pitching lessons and from some, former scouts and stuff like that. So I was all in on pitching once I decided that's my direction. And like I said, I played both all 4 years. So I think that helped arm wise, that I wasn't a burnout year round travel ball kid that threw 100 innings a year at 12 years old. Like I just wasn't doing that. So I was very selective. I'm glad my parents didn't make me play one sport forever and just specialize my whole life. Cause I'm glad I got to play basketball as long as I did. And I think it did help my arm longevity wise down the road.
Yeah. I have to agree with you there. I mean, it kind of reminds me of, I think it was Wayne Gretzky who might have said it. And, he, obviously greatest hockey player to ever play. But he even said at one point, all right, like whenever hockey season ended, they would, go and play baseball, or they would, whenever, one sport, even if it was the main sport that they were good at, they would always have, the versatility of playing other sports. And it's not really something you see nowadays. And I think it does lead kind of, how do you say, a lot of athletes, burning out and not really being able to carry on in like the ways that they used to.
Right. I think it makes you a better athlete overall, using different,
100%.
Muscles and different fast twitch things. And you think differently and you see things differently, it makes you more coordinated. But also, like when I was in high school, there was nobody getting Tommy John surgery. There was nobody having major shoulder injuries. And now these kids are starting to get hurt in high school that they're just burnt out from travel ball. And
especially at that age
problem. It's a huge issue. Yeah.
It's huge. So, I mean, I know for myself personally, I played baseball in high school. It was the first sport that I ever really truly appreciated. Now it took me a little bit longer to kind of get going and get my bearings. But by the end of high school, I'd say that it was my favorite sport all around. But I did end up doing winter track. And I remember when I started doing indoor track, it was, I literally said to my friends that I was like, hey, we're going to do track so we can train for the next baseball season and have something to do in the wintertime. And I said that around my 8th grade year. And then that led to me doing it for 5 years and through my senior year of high school. And it was just like, and eventually I grew to have an appreciation and love for it, which I didn't originally have. And it's really nice that I was able to do that, because if I just, slacked off in the wintertime and baseball season rolls around, I wouldn't have nearly been the type of player that I was today.
Right. Exactly. No, I agree. And you hear a lot of football players saying, they're track athletes in the off season to get themselves, faster and, quicker, all that stuff. So I think it helps.
100%. Yeah, no, it's amazing. So it's something that I think a lot of people should, and a lot more younger athletes should continue to do, especially just to kind of gain to, have that versatility and, as you say, work those muscles. But we're going to have to see how that ends up going from now on. But the next question I kind of have for you is, this is something that, kind of happens for a lot of people at different ages. For some people, they can be considered a late bloomer, where they find their stride a little bit later on in their childhood, and then they, blossom into a more professional athlete down the line. Or some people are just natural from the get-go. I remember personally, I talked with Sean Burke. He was a recent draftee of the White Sox this past season. And I ended up saying to him, I was like, oh, when did it click for you? And he said, oh, I was about 9 years old, and I put one out of a 230-foot Little League stadium. I'm like, okay, so you kind of had something there. And he goes, yeah, I think I did. And then I was like, okay, well, that's fair enough. But for yourself, when did it kind of click to you that you were going to be able to play at a professional level and something beyond high school and college?
I think, I never felt like when I was pitching in high school that I was overmatched ever. I always felt like my stuff played. I just mentally knew how to pitch. I was a student of the game. I not only did I have the physical ability, but mentally I was so locked in as a pitcher. I actually threw a no-hitter in high school. So I was like, okay, I might have something here. It was never, honestly, it's weird to say, but a lot of athletes might tell you this. It was never a doubt that I would play college baseball or beyond that. I didn't know about pro baseball, but it was always like, this is plan A. Like I'm not doing anything else but this. Like I'm going to be a college athlete kind of thing. And as long as I was playing sports, I didn't have to get a real job. So I just wanted to do that and stay with it and see what I got, man. Like I said, I never really felt overmatched. So I just felt like, all right, if my stuff plays here, let's see if it plays to the next level and then the next level and all that stuff.
That's awesome. So I mean, just to be able to, that's actually interesting that it was just kind of, going along and seeing where things kind of matched up. I do kind of, I kind of have a admiration for that. I do like that. Uh, I guess the next thing I have to ask you then is, then once you kind of made it onto college and then onto pros, there's a lot of emotions that go through with that. And I guess what I kind of have to say is, when it came to you, maybe, what are some more emotional moments in your career? Could it be maybe getting that draft call, or, as you said, pitching a no-hitter? What are some of the more emotional moments that you've had to deal with in your career?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say, excuse me. Before I got drafted, I actually went to the University of Arizona for 2 years, and I redshirted my first year. I was a walk-on, not on scholarship, and I barely pitched the second year. And I decided to transfer colleges, so that my first real hit of life adversity was, all right, I'm not going to get drafted if I don't pitch. And if scouts don't see me, I'm not going to have any exposure to professional baseball. So I loved going to school at U of A, but I had to make the tough decision like, hey, if I'm going to try to do this, I got to go somewhere I'm going to pitch. And total gamble, switching schools to another loaded program at Long Beach State. But I learned how to pitch better there. I became a professional level pitcher there. I didn't even know what my role was in the beginning of the year. And by the end of the year, 6 months later in the season, I'm pitching in a regional playoff game in college playoffs. So you never know what can happen in a year's time. And I bet on myself, and I still had the belief, even though I was kind of shunned at U of A. They had their scholarship guys, whatever. But that was like my first hit of adversity before the draft, which was like, a really emotional day for everybody in my family. But transferring schools, just so everybody out there, the youngins out there, it's okay to transfer schools if you're not playing or it's not the right fit for you, because you got to go somewhere you're going to play. So that was why I did that. And that was a huge moment in my career.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's actually really cool. So, I mean, I guess then when it came to you actually then getting drafted, what was, I've talked to a couple of guys about that experience. What was it like for you? So I believe you went in the fifth round, was it?
Yeah. Fifth round to the Seattle Mariners. I had heard leading up to the draft that, as my stock started to rise, you get phone calls and you get questionnaires in your locker, and you got to fill out all this BS, to let the teams know, will you sign for this? Will you sign for this? Do you want to go back to school? All this stuff. And even draft morning, they're calling you. If we take you here, will you sign for this? All this stuff. So it's very emotional, because all this work you've put in for, at the time, 21 years of life in baseball. And my parents take me to pitching lessons, and, all this stuff led to, I had heard I was going to go 4 through 6, somewhere in there. And the first 4 rounds went by, and I'm like, I might not get drafted today. I was just totally in my head about it. Like, it's not going to happen. And then 1 round later, I see my name pop up on the screen, and I was like, no, that can't be right. And then I get the call from the scout that signed me, and he was like, hey, we just took you in the 5th round, blah, blah, blah. So it was a cool moment for my family and I that day.
Yeah. So that's actually really awesome. So when it, obviously when the kind of the dust settled on that, and it was like, all right, kind of get to work now and, report to wherever you go beyond that. I've heard a bunch of guys talk about their minor league experience, and at different levels, it can, be kind of grueling depending on where you're going. You're on a bus a lot of the time, just kind of dealing with that. What were some of the challenges that you had to deal with down in those levels?
Yeah. So when I first started, I went to a lot of like the young high school kids or Latin players will start in rookie ball. So that's like the lowest level. I started in what's called short season, which is just one level up from that. A lot of the college draft picks, guys in their early 20s. It's just, I didn't know what to expect. You're now everybody's getting paid. There's no more class anymore. It's baseball all the time. You're at the field all the time. You're traveling in terrible buses and staying in crappy hotels. You're eating crap food. Like it's just not a great lifestyle, and you're expected to perform every single night. So you just, everybody's concerned. The minor leagues is a very selfish life, because if I'm being honest, does it really matter if the team wins? No, you're just there to develop and hopefully get called up to the big leagues in a few years, So winning I won a minor league championship, it didn't help my career at all. Honestly, it had no effect. It's all about development and weeding guys out to see who they like the best. And there's a whole politics behind it that I can get into of why people get called up and why people don't. It's a tough life, man. And, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the minor league stuff out there. You only get paid during the 6-month season. You get nothing in the off season. The pay is less than minimum wage. So, and finally minor league baseball or major league baseball is stepping up this coming year and going to pay for guys housing, which is a huge deal, which
Absolutely.
they should have been doing the whole time,
Yeah.
but it's one small step in the right direction, but they still have a long way to go.
Yeah, no, it's 100% like the right stuff to be going for them. I guess the way I know it, at least for myself, when, obviously I played high school baseball, and then I also did track, as I previously mentioned. The way you kind of describe minor league baseball kind of describes the way I used to attribute baseball versus track for myself in high school. When it came to baseball, obviously it was, all right, we want to, like, you want to do well for yourself, but it was like, all right, how can I help the team win? How can I do this for myself and do that? When it came to track, on the other hand, yeah, like we could go and win divisional championships, and there were districts that your overall school could move on to. But if you weren't a part of that, it was kind of like, all right, like, cool, my school won something. My school won like this sport championship, but if I'm not a part of it, then you don't really, kind of like get that satisfaction of it if you can't really have the individual pride in that. But I know for myself, when it came to track, it was like, all right, I'm going to go for this individual sprinting record. I'm going to try to break this 50-meter record for myself. And, it's all about PRs. And I feel like that's kind of the way you could attribute the minor leagues to, to the way the competitiveness is.
Right. And I tell people this too, when I got drafted by Seattle, which is great. So I was one of their draftees, and, I was one of their priority guys before I got traded. And then once I went to Pittsburgh, and then eventually the Arizona Diamondbacks, they already have the guys that they drafted. And so you have these front offices that have to push their draft picks through the system because their ass is on the line for picking those guys. So if they don't perform, then you have to move them up to maybe make them tradable assets at some point in the minors. So once you leave your original team, that's why it's so hard to make it once you get moved or traded or released, because you're not a priority person anymore. You're getting pushed out by younger guys. They have priority people over you. So one thing that sucks is, I thought getting traded would be a good boost for my career. It wasn't, because I left the Mariners, who really liked me out of college, and I was one of their guys in the beginning. So it's definitely a lot. There's so much out of your control. That's the message of everything. Is the only thing you control is how you play on the field. You're not going to control who gets moved up, who gets moved down, who gets traded. I used to call it playing GM. You're not going to be able to figure out all these roster moves, right? You can't. You just have to, as hard as it is, you have to only control what you can do on the field.
Yeah, I guess from there, then you mentioned getting traded at that point. What is that? I've always kind of wondered, what is it like, getting the call that, oh, you've just been traded? It has to feel like so much is just out of your power. I mean, unless you're like some big league hotshot, like saying, oh, I demand a trade, and you're going out for that. Like, whenever I feel like most minor leaguers, when you're just a part of that, especially, in the era that you played in, where, these minor leaguers weren't given the housing that they probably were entitled to, and weren't able to have these certain rights and liberties. What was that like for you when you got the notice that you were traded for the first time?
It was actually kind of weird. I was my buddy and I got traded together we were in a package deal on that team, and we were on the bus on our way to a game. And the coach, before I got off, came up to me and was like, "Hey, you're not dressing out today. You're going to be sitting in the stands because your name is in trade talks." And so I was like, "Whoa, okay." That was kind of a shock. And that's mentally crazy. you can take that one of two ways. One is, okay, the team gave up on me that I'm with right now, and you can be all sad about it. Or you can think, which didn't end up coming true, but I can think, all right, I got a new opportunity here. This next team wants me in a trade. That means I have some value. Yeah. So I sat out for 2 days, waiting till the trade deadline. And then I see, I obviously hear about it. And it was actually cool to see my name on the bottom line of ESPN in a trade. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I got an ESPN for something.
What was do you remember what was the trade a part of?
It was, so Pittsburgh was giving away Jack Wilson, the shortstop. I don't know if you remember that name. And Ian Snell was a pitcher. So they both went to Seattle, and 5 of us minor leaguers went to Pittsburgh in that trade.
Oh, wow.
And then it was, it's crazy. So I'm on the road already, right? So I have to fly back to my home stadium or home city at the time, which was Clinton, Iowa. Mm-hmm. And I had to get out of my lease there, get off of whatever bills I was on, pack up all my stuff, take another flight to meet the next minor league team I was going to, which is still in low A. So in the minors, they were on the road, couldn't even move into my next place. And by the way, I don't even know where I'm going to live when I get back to the home city in West Virginia, because I don't know, you got to hope somebody's room is available now that just left. We're sleeping on air mattresses in the living room and the kitchen. it's just, you know,
it's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare, man. It's a nightmare. You don't know anybody on the new team.
God.
And again, you have to show up, and within a day or two, you're back on the mound, you're pitching again. All that stuff goes away when you get on the field and have to perform. It's tough.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't imagine having to deal with all that stuff. For you, I mean, you know, getting traded, having to deal with all this stuff, you know, the crap of just like, you know, being in the middle of a minor league season, you know, getting bussed from place to place, like as you said, eating crap food and doing whatnot.
Right.
How did you stay focused? Like, how did you like still have it in your mind to be like, all right, this is like a lot to deal with, but I have the goals of, you know, of moving on to the next level. How did you stay focused in your mind?
There's no easy way about it. Like it just, there's not, because you don't have a choice. That's why the only thing you can do is play. Right. And they always tell you, if you want to move up, play better. It's such BS. Like I was a 2-time minor league all-star and didn't get called up either year. It's just, there's only so much you can do to further your career. And it's a lot of luck, and opportunity has to be right. And they gotta want you to move up in the system. Like for instance, I was an all-star in high A with the Pirates in the Florida State League. Okay.
Yeah.
And they hid me, basically. They stashed me away, didn't move me up to Double A at all. I totally had outperformed the league at that point. What else do you need to see? And the big break in my career was in the offseason. I got Rule 5 to the Diamondbacks. So that was like, wow, finally, you know. So I'm going from high A to big league spring training the following year. That was a huge turning point in my career.
Yeah.
Even though I never made it to the big leagues, I still got to go to a big league spring training, which was a huge deal. I'm on the 40-man. You know, that was a huge thing. But again, back to your point of, you know, I can't control where my career goes except for what I'm doing on the field. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that has to go your way.
Oh, that's just crazy stuff, man. I mean,
it is, man.
I can't imagine having to deal with just like a bunch of just like this back and forth stuff. It's actually kind of nuts. Personally, I've talked to some guys about their minor league experiences, and other people, you know, having to come up in these, you know, kind of difficult like circumstances, and it's ridiculous, man. That's actually nuts.
Yeah, no, it's a tough life, and that, you know, there's no guarantees, there's no job security, there's nothing. It's just, you got to hope you make it, and keep your mind on, you know, hey, the next outing could be the one. You never know. Yeah,
that is nuts. So you talked about you know, being able to attend a big league spring training. So obviously, you know, you were on the 40-man, but you didn't make like the opening day roster, and you were, you know, did go down to the minors after that. But when you're on the 40-man, how are you treated? Like, do you kind of get the big league treatment because you're with the big leaguers, or how does it go?
A little bit. I mean, there were a lot of veterans in that clubhouse. That was 2012. So the Diamondbacks still had like a playoff caliber team there.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of big names still in that clubhouse. I mean, you're not amongst them, no, but by all the staff and equipment people and trainers, you get treated well, you know, and by the fans, you sign a lot of autographs now, more than you ever have before, you know, so you get treated much better. You're getting a little money in spring training too. You just get all the perks, you know, and it's nice. And so that part's great.
So is it then humbling then to go back down to the minors after that, and then have to?
It's so hard mentally. You get a taste of it, right? And then you get sent down. You're like, God damn, man! Like I was just there, like, and I did well in spring training too. And I'm like, man, now I kind of feel far away again. And that's where like the bitterness and the saltiness comes in, because like AAA is the saltiest group of dudes you could be around, because either they've tasted it and been in the big leagues, or they're back down, or they're so close to getting one call away from getting to the big leagues, and they're like, I should be up there right now. You know, AAA is a tough, talk about a mental grind, because you are truly one call away from the big leagues, one injury away, one road trip away where they need a double header. They got to bring an extra guy up. You are one call away, and you're stuck there. And sometimes you just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, that's actually got to be really tough. I mean, I know for myself, I attended a bunch of AAA games back in the day for the Red Sox organization. They were originally out of Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and then they've actually now moved over to Worcester. They actually
Mass.
Yeah. So the Paw Sox are officially no more. They are now the Worcester Red Sox, which kind of I wasn't too fond of the name change. I wish they had still been the Paw Sox in some sort of way, but I gotta say their new stadium, man, it's actually amazing.
Nice.
Like I have to say, like I've said this on my show a couple times, and I had someone else say it before, and he basically ended up saying, but like the seating capacity is minor league, everything else is essentially major league in terms of its quality.
Sure.
And it's incredible looking there. And I mean, I hope that more minor league teams and stadiums get to have that kind of a kind of a rebrand and kind of get that treatment in the future. But that was amazing to kind of see and look at. But
No, it's great for fans too. I always tell people, if you can go to a minor league game, it's a totally different experience. You can actually go down and get autographs if you want. You get close to the players. Everything's cheaper. It's like they get dollar beer night sometimes, and it's all promotional events too. And so minor league games are fun. They're great for families.
Yeah, it's cheap, but there's also a sense of a community, and you also get a feel for wherever it is. While you can go to a major league city, obviously Fenway, you're gonna have the ties to Boston, and that's always going to be something there. Yankee Stadium, you're gonna have a feel for that there. But a lot of stadiums nowadays, it kind of just feels like, okay, you're just playing, just in this random arena, and it kind of, you don't really get the feel of where you're playing anymore. Minor league stadiums, it's kind of the opposite of that. You kind of, most of the time, you have usually a feel of where you're going, at least from the stadiums I've been to. I've been to the Portland Stadium up in Maine.
Oh, okay.
Been to Pawtucket, now this one. And it sounds really and it's really cool to see. I know for the new Worcester Stadium, what they did is they took a lot of the local businesses and restaurants, and instead of having just some regular pizza shop, they took one of the key places over there. They ended up taking and making into the pizza thing there, which was really cool.
Okay, nice. No, I think it's great. And you also get to see these players before they get called up too, which is kind of cool.
That's one of the cool things too. I mean, I remember, I think it was 2014, and I think I went down to a Paw Sox game, and I got to see Mookie Betts like torch like this team, and it was ridiculous. And it's actually ridiculous to see these guys go out there and perform the way they do.
Yeah, you can tell. And by the way, I'm sure fans can tell too, but like what guys are probably going to be big leaguers on those teams too. But once you get to AAA, everybody's good, man. Everybody's good.
Oh yeah, everyone is good.
Those dudes can play in the big leagues, honestly, all of them.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, there are some guys where you just see some big league teams that are struggling, and you end up saying, "Oh well, like maybe this guy should get a shot if he was in the right situation."
Yeah, totally.
It's crazy. But I guess you're talking about like incredible talent down in the minor league level. Something I watched on your TikToks that you talked about was having the chance to play with some players that are now playing or have once played at the major league level. Some guys you talked about were Trevor Bauer, Patrick Corbin, Nick Ahmed, just to name a few. I think you mentioned Adam Eaton among some other guys. And that's just got to be incredible. So when you're playing with guys of that caliber, do you realize, all right, these guys are probably going to be able to move on to the next level and have success? Or were there some guys that maybe caught you off guard?
There are some guys that I'm like, there's dudes I even played against that I'm like, there's no way this dude's going to make it. And he does. And it's just, you get those shockers, every once in a while. But the first time I saw Nick Ahmed play defense at short, I was like, this dude is the best defensive shortstop I've ever seen, like by far. So having him behind me was awesome. And the second baseman was Chris Owings. So both those guys are big leaguers. And it's it was ridiculous. Matt Davidson was at third. He played for the White Sox for a while. And having guys like Adam Eaton and Ender Enciarte in the outfield, you're just like, dude, there's no balls dropping out here. Like it's just, it was cool to play with guys like that. But yeah, seeing Bauer and Corbin and Tyler Skaggs, all these dudes that eventually played in the big leagues, it just tells you how much talent the Diamondbacks had and how much they didn't want to pay all these guys.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, when you ended up saying, "Oh yeah, we won the big league," when we won like the minor league
Double-A championship.
I was like, yeah, it kind of figures. I was seeing like the amount of talent,
which is actually okay. Believe it or not, that's hard to do because if you have that many studs on your team, they're probably going to get moved up at the halfway point. So it's hard to keep everybody together for the most part and still win a championship. Like I said from the beginning, it doesn't matter that we won the championship. It's a nice thing, but
it's like, hey, like celebrate, and then it's like
that doesn't mean I'm going up to AAA next year. So,
exactly.
But yeah, I just wanted to highlight all those guys that I played with. It was kind of cool to have that much talent on, over half my team went to the big leagues, which is, names wise more than, I'm sure you've seen some of my other series that I played against big name guys, but that team was loaded.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that team just seems absolutely stacked. Yeah. And it kind of does show. When did you guys end up winning that championship?
So that was 2012 Double-A. Yeah.
Okay, so it was 2012 Double A. I think 2012 Triple A, the Pawtucket Red Sox ended up winning for the Triple A title.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of funny because usually, a minor league championship can sometimes be, like the counterpart to it can be a bad major league season by the team.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was watching the 2012 Red Sox. They were abysmal. I mean, they won like 60 something games. Bobby Valentine ended up getting fired at the end of it all.
That's right. And then they won the World Series the following year.
Yeah. And it kind of makes you go, oh, like they had a bunch of talent down in AAA. They ended up winning the AAA championship. And then the very next year, a lot of those guys like Xander Bogaerts ends up coming up. They had a couple pitchers here and there who also made their debuts. And it really just goes to show, all right, when that talent really, hits it and goes, like you have a real shot to impress.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's exactly what we had. So yeah, 2012, 2013. 2013 was my last year in the minors. I played independent ball in 2014, but
okay.
When I was in AA and AAA, we had a lot of talent there. So it was just a lot of guys stashed away, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Something else I kind of saw about you and your playing career as well was, so you ended up getting the chance to, or at least play in part in the World Baseball Classic, or at least try to go for it with Team Israel. What was that experience like? Because I think that was around 2013 was that World Baseball Classic.
Exactly. You got it.
That's actually kind of interesting because that was around the first year obviously I played baseball all the time growing up, but I'd never really had a real enjoyment of it till I was around 12, 13 years old, just because I wasn't any good for a long time. So it was like, yeah, I'll watch, but I was like, man, I suck. But then like, I think around 13, I remember watching the World Baseball Classic and, then watching that 2013 Red Sox season after that, a kid from Massachusetts, a kind of a dream, the first season you're really into watching baseball, your team has a miraculous year and goes on and wins the World Series. But for yourself, getting to play in the World Baseball Classic and getting to do that, what was that experience like?
So I'll tell you this. Remember how I talked about how selfish the minor leagues is?
Oh,
this was no. This was the opposite.
Oh, good.
This is the first time since college. And no, it's a positive spin. This is the first time since college where we were trying to win conference championships and win for us the Big West or whatever.
Yeah.
This was the first time it was an unselfish, take your ego out of it. You're playing for a country now, and so a lot of us it's kind of. Should we even allowed to play? I don't know, but it's a lot of, Jewish American minor leaguers. And there were a ton of us that were legit, like guys like Jock Peterson was on my team. We had some other legit players. And so we were allowed to play for Team Israel in the qualifier. Unfortunately, that year we didn't make it, but it was 2 weeks. Everybody knew you're playing for something bigger than yourself. And for a bunch of minor league guys, that was pretty refreshing because it's, like I said, it's such a selfish game in the minors. And to get to play for something bigger than yourself, obviously I would have loved to play for Team USA, but getting to play in any World Baseball Classic, it's like going to the Olympics, man. It's way bigger than you. And the passion comes back. It's like you're a kid again. You just want to win, whatever it takes. It's not about getting called up. It's about winning for your team and your country, So it was awesome.
That has to be a really refreshing thing, especially kind of dealing with all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's actually,
it was
really
awesome.
cool.
I mean, obviously it sucked we didn't win, but eventually a few years ago, I believe 2016 or 2018, they ended up going to Tokyo and playing in Korea, and they made it. So it was a great experience. So that's cool you brought that up because it was definitely a fun part of my baseball career.
Yeah, there were a couple other guys I saw on that list. This guy was kind of a 4A player, Ryan Lavarnway. Was a guy I thought of too. He was some guy I always just knew from Red Sox because he would either be down in AAA, and he was always just the starting catcher for the Pawtucket Red Sox, or whenever David Ross or Jared Saltalamacchia went down, he would be the guy that would get called up. So that was another name that I kind of remembered.
By the way, kudos to you for knowing what 4A player is.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of people don't know what that is. So basically, I don't know if you want to explain it or I'll explain it.
I'll have you go for it.
Okay. So basically it's like, AAA is considered 3A. So basically if you dominate AAA, but you really can't break through for some reason at the big leagues, they call you a 4A player, which means you're too good for AAA, but for some reason you just can't hit or figure it out in the big league. So you're in that limbo stage where you keep getting called up and down. And there's a lot of 4A guys out there.
Yeah. That was a term I think I got introduced to me maybe I was like 9, 10 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I remember hearing about that, and I was like, oh,
yeah.
wow, that's actually kind of interesting. And I
Yeah.
remember understanding the idea behind it. And that was something kind of fun to, or maybe not fun, but interesting to kind of learn
Yeah.
as a little
It happens a
baseball.
lot. There's a lot of guys that are just, for some reason, they get up to the big leagues, can't hit. I don't know.
Yeah. I think there were a couple of guys that kind of reminded me of that for a long time. One guy that I think figured it out was Chris Colabello. He was a guy that ended up figuring it out, but then had some stuff tied to him later on. But was a guy with the Twins that I kind of ended up remembering. But you talked about playing in 2013. That was the last year of professional ball for you, and then in 2014 you go on to play indie ball. At the end of it all, when you ended up saying, "All right," like 2014 rolls around, maybe the end of that season. When did it kind of kick in for you? All right, this might be it, and I might be time for me to kind of hang it up.
Yeah, I think I thought I had a great year in 2013. I was definitely could have gotten called up to the big leagues. I came back to spring training 2014, and they let me go. I was just one of the older guys on the bubble, and they had their own dudes that they wanted to put in those spots. So I just told myself, I'm going to give it 1 year in independent ball. I'm not going to be a baseball lifer and play till I'm 40 and play independent ball for peanuts. I just don't want to do that. It's not fun,
Yeah.
So, I told myself if I can't get signed back, I'm done. And my first 19 innings in independent ball, I went to Long Island, New York, to play there for the Ducks. And my first 19 innings were scoreless. Okay, and so I'm like, if this doesn't get me called back to minor league baseball, what else can I possibly do? So I just kind of accepted it. I really tried the whole year. I've had some injuries over my career too. I had a hip surgery, had some groin issues for a while. So that also held me back a little bit. But at the same time, I told myself, I can't do much better than I've already done. I'm at peace with my career. I'm going to be 28 going on 29. Like at that point I was okay with it. Baseball's gotten very young lately. So I was ready to move on mentally because I just knew I couldn't do anything more.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when obviously once that comes around, that's got to be kind of a tough decision to kind of make with yourself. Obviously, when you made that decision, was there kind of a little bit of a hesitation with it, or were you kind of just like, all right, like you said, you were at peace with it, but how did you kind of take that?
Yeah, there was a little bit of hesitation just because this is all I've done for a very long time. 7 years of professional baseball is a long time. And, every off season I had the same kind of structure and all that stuff getting ready. And I was just used to that lifestyle. And now I'm like, oh, damn, I got to go into the real world now.
Yeah.
It was, it's not an easy transition. And I talk about that a lot on my podcast when I have former, athletes on, because it's not easy for a lot of guys, especially those single sport athletes who are obsessed with baseball and that's their whole identity. And now what when you leave? It's very difficult. Mm-hmm. So luckily, for me, actually, it's kind of weird. I always kind of want to own my own business. So I actually went into franchising because I have you heard of Jimmy John's, the sandwich place?
Yeah, we got a Jimmy John's near us.
Okay. So I decided that I was going to become a franchisee after my career was over. So I went right into that. They were opening up a bunch of stores in California, and I got to, be able to apply and get one of them. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. So I'll tell you that. But it was just, I don't know. I just got the idea that I wanted to own my own business, and I ended up doing it for 3 years with my cousin. Luckily, we ended up getting out and selling, and we didn't take a loss or anything like that. So that was good. Oh, nice. But it was a tough experience, but good experience running the show. And it was just really difficult, man. So now I don't have to have a midlife crisis opening a bar or anything like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's actually really interesting. So then when did it kind of, obviously I talked at the beginning of the show about you starting your own sports podcast.
Yeah.
When did it occur to you that all right, I've if I've been playing baseball and doing and participating in sports all my life, when did it occur to you, all right, now I want to get into talking about it and getting the chance to interview people? When did that, passion start?
Yeah, honestly about 2 years ago. So maybe right before the pandemic, right when it started, almost like right when the pandemic started, just like everybody else starting a podcast. Yeah. But right. It's just, it's, everybody had all of a sudden a bunch of time on their hands. So,
yeah.
Right when I retired, kind of like you were asking, I didn't watch baseball. I didn't want to see the guys that were getting called up. That wasn't me, like I wanted to get away from baseball for a little while. And now, 6-7 years later, I've kind of always liked sports media and getting into the business and talking to people. And I thought I'd be a pretty decent interviewer. And, I like doing the research and being prepared. And I don't know, I just enjoy conversation with people and shedding light. It started with shedding light on the minor leagues. And so a bunch of my former teammates and guys I played against what their experience was. And so then I've branched out beyond that into all sports and all kinds of people in the sports world. And it's it's grown into something bigger, and I'm trying to see where I can go with it now. And I'm trying to make that my next career, whether it's, on TV or radio or broadcasting, or, I just feel like I can speak the game pretty well. And it's just, it's my new passion. So I'm going for it.
Yeah, man. I've seen a couple of your shows and they've been really awesome. You've been able to get some really awesome guests that I've been able to see. I think 2 weeks ago you had ESPN's Rob Parker on your show. I was like, that is awesome. Now he's kind of the bane of my existence because because he always likes to crap on Tom Brady, but
of course. But he calls him the luckiest of all time.
I mean, man, I can't get over this guy. Like,
yeah, I know. He's all controversial and very shock value.
He should have he should be living in Mexico by now. That's what he said if Tom Brady won another Super Bowl. But guess what? He's still going to be doing his thing. But obviously, man, it was a big get for me.
Oh, yeah, that was a huge deal. So it was good.
That's awesome to be able to get someone like that. That's actually amazing. Yeah. But I guess then once you got into that and then doing anything like this, you talked about some of the some being able to get into some other sports and do other things down the line. I guess that kind of like concludes what we have in terms of our interview with you. Sure. But while we do have you here, I figured that we do a little bit some sports talk before we end.
Yeah, man, whatever you want.
Absolutely. So I figured we talk about some NFL news, and then we'll sign off and get things and send you guys into the new year. But what I figured we talk about first is in NFL news, the NFL decided to follow the new CDC guidelines, which just changed like 2 days ago, and basically say that their new COVID isolation time is going to be moved from 10 days now down to 5 days.
Right.
And this comes, man, after a significant number of players have tested into the COVID protocols. I think I saw one stat that said 1 in 4 players have tested into the protocols, I think since Thanksgiving is what it was. And I'm like, that's actually absurd, that the amount of players that are now testing positive. And it's crazy because it's led to a bunch of guys that, a lot, like there are plenty of guys that are in the NFL where it's like, all right, like you're an NFL quality player, like you got to respect what they've been able to do. But just face it, when it comes to Sunday, we're not looking to see you. We're not looking to see you play on TV. Some guys I was thinking about, it was Ian Book, who I think started for the Saints. It was Jake Fromm, who got time for the Giants, Josh Johnson for the Ravens, and Pat McAfee. I don't know if you listen to his show often, but he ended up putting out a graphic of all the guys who ended up starting on last Sunday, week 16 of the season. And it goes Davis Mills of the Texans, Tim Boyle, Josh Johnson, Mike Glennon, and Jake Fromm, just to name a few guys. I'm like, oh my God. And again, credit to all those guys. Those guys, if you play in a backyard football league, like they said, they'd smoke you. Like they would actually destroy you. But it's like when it comes to NFL Sunday, if there are guys that aren't injured right now and possibly have the ability to get back, I want to see them on the field and I want to see them competing at the highest level. So I'm excited by this move, and I'm interested to see how this affects the rest of the season.
Yeah, I would say hopefully, I think they said, if you're asymptomatic, you can come back in 5 days or whatever. Yeah. I mean, obviously most of the guys are getting, if not their second vaccine, at least their boosters now. So it's like, hopefully with the new variant, it's a little bit easier to deal with. Yeah, it sucks watching bad football. There's no way around it. Same with the NBA. They're throwing out 10-day contracts to everybody, man. I mean, I saw Lance Stevenson and Joe Johnson playing the other day, it's like the big three dudes coming back. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, man, I got to see ISO Joe suit up for the Celtics, man.
Joe.
That was an experience. My brother was at that game. He was talking about, I was like, man, you got to see Joe Johnson check into a game. And
it's pretty cool, man.
In 2021, man, you are a lucky guy. I was like, that is.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. It's fun to see storylines like that, at least in the NBA, because it's like, all right, like there are 5 guys out there, and not one guy has to be the means to score. In football, you kind of are more limited because if your quarterback is out, you kind of are shot.
Yeah, that's the problem, is like with COVID, like you can lose other players, but if you lose a quarterback, it changes your whole team, man. It's it's not the same. And nobody wants to watch third string quarterbacks. It's not good football. So they want to see the stars. So whatever we can do to get the stars back out there, that's what we got to do.
I'm all for that as well. I mean, you talked about the starting quarterbacks going down. When it came to the Saints, I mean, they just got absolutely rocked.
Decimated.
Because I mean, Taysom Hill went out, Simeon went out, and they're left with Ian Book. And credit to Ian Book, he was a fine quarterback over at Notre Dame, but I mean, he also didn't get a lot of preparation coming into this game too, because I think he was stuck in, isolation and because he was kind of a close contact. So he wasn't able to even meet his teammates basically till almost game day. So it's all the COVID stuff that these guys have had to go through. It's been just an absolute strain on these guys. And any way that they can, try to make it easier on them now is definitely something I'm in favor of. One of the things that's actually interesting about this too is some guys this week that we thought they were going to be in jeopardy for this weekend are now able to play. Carson Wentz is one of those guys that tested positive earlier on in this week. And it was like, oh, like the Colts might be in trouble this Sunday. But as soon as the guidelines changed, he's now able to come back in 5 days. So he'll be ready to go by Sunday. And there's a lot of, interesting little things to see with that.
Well, then it also affects playoff seeding too. So if you're in contention
Absolutely.
and your quarterback's out, you might lose a game that's going to determine you not making the playoffs. So
yeah,
there's nothing worse than that, because you're not really losing the game. You're losing for external factors, which sucks for your team.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, while COVID is still serious, and you can recognize the seriousness of it, it does make you kind of feel cheated when a guy he didn't go down with a knee injury, or he doesn't have a concussion. And while you do want these guys to be in the best and be as safe as possible, when they go down for something like COVID, which a lot of these guys are in a good enough physical shape to handle, it does make you kind of feel cheated. And it's like, like we had a shot to really beat these guys, and just because our guy kind of has the sniffles right now, it makes
No, it's true. And that's the hard part, man. So it's just, if I'm any team that's in contention right now for the playoffs, I am isolating as much as possible. Think about the college games. The UCLA NC State game got canceled the other day. Lots of COVID issues. If I'm an NFL team that's in contention, you better isolate as much as possible before the playoffs, because there's no reason. Well, you can't control it, but hopefully you don't lose a player of a star player to this that's going to affect you and get into a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you really have to look out for. I know as a Pats fan, I was kind of shaking a little bit because I saw Brian Hoyer tested positive for COVID and is now in protocols. I'm like, please protect Mac Jones at all causes. Not only because he's it would put him in jeopardy for the game this weekend, but also because I'm going to the game this weekend and I want to see him. I want to actually see him perform on the field. I was kind of a nice.
Yeah, you guys need to win out, I think, right, to get the division, possibly.
Possibly for the division. Buffalo, I think, needs to lose though.
Yeah,
they do need to lose one of their next two. I think it is. So it's tough. I am confident that we'll do well against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think.
Yeah, I'd say.
The last time I checked, I think we were actually favored by 15.5 points, which is absurd.
Sounds right.
I feel pretty good about our odds, but again, knock on wood, nothing's ever a certainty there. So we're going to have to look out and see how that goes. But hopefully everything starts to look better in the NFL in terms of COVID. Man, it just sucks that I still have to be talking about COVID. It's almost, 2 days away now from 2022. I don't want to be talking about this on my show anymore. It's had enough time on my show at this point. It's probably been a majority of the topics I've had to talk about on my show for reasons whether I like them or not. And it kind of sucks.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man.
It's really been a drag. I mean, I did a whole quarantine special right back when everything started in 2020, had a little bit of fun with that, but man, I'm done. Let's get on to the next, storyline here. But obviously the next storyline, which we're actually going to get into today, is a little bit more of a somber one. It's kind of something that is a little more emotional and is very sad overall. And it was that just a couple days ago, the NFL world and community ended up learning about the very sad and tragic passing of legendary coach and icon John Madden. He was 85 years old when he passed away. And man, I can't think of a more influential figure in the game of football. I mean, and that's coming from someone who never even, stepped on an NFL field. Now, he did get drafted by the Eagles back, I believe it was in 1958, but he suffered a career-ending knee injury before he could even ever take a snap, which is really tough. But then ended up coming on and being a coach. I think it was at 32 years old, making him the youngest coach in the league at the time. He then goes on to coach the Raiders to a Super Bowl in 1976, goes out, starts doing Miller Lite commercials and becomes kind of a funny guy doing that. And then, was doing little bits here and there, becomes a commentator, having a little fun here and there. I think he was the first guy to work for all 4 major sports networks, which was really, revolutionary at the time. Was able to have a real connection to the fans. and then also was able to have a connection to like the next generation of fans by starting the Madden franchise back in 1989 and having it run all the way through today. It's been over 30 years that franchise has been running, which is crazy. So I'm definitely going to miss John Madden. It is a tough loss for the NFL community.
I don't think I can say it better than you did. That you pretty much said it all right there. Yeah, he was definitely iconic, going from coach to broadcaster. He could speak the game. And I think he had fun with the telestrator, and, he made it watchable. He made it easy for the casual fan to be like, oh, that's why this happened in this play right here. So that makes sense. And he was fun, man. And he had a personality. He was the first, one of the first big showmen on, like they mentioned on that documentary the other day. Him and Michael Jordan were pushing products back then in the 80s, so he was definitely bigger than life, and he took that tour bus. He would never fly. So he would really be on the ground of America, and he would connect with people, and he would bring people along in the broadcast booth. And he got to work with a lot of big name broadcasters. So, he really was the epitome of football for all those years. So definitely a tough loss. And the video games will live on forever. And, he was definitely probably the most influential person in modern day football.
Yeah, I'd have to say so myself. I mean, you can make the case for some athletes and different people here and there, but just as a figure, no one really can compare to what John Madden was able to bring to, football, not even just as the game itself, but just as a brand and like how it's been able to evolve over the years. I mean, I saw another clip trending. It was of him. I think it was part of his a football life documentary, and he ends up like going out behind his house, and I guess like right behind it, he has like an old Raiders practice sled where they used to like, have the tackles push and stuff against. And he's recalling like, calling out plays where he would be on it. And he was pretending to ride that sled like when the tackles used to push it along back in the day. And he's laughing, having a good time. And it's like, wow, he's like a kid in a candy store. He loved the game of football more than anyone that I've really ever been able to see. And it was a genuine passion for the sport, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure. He, like I said, larger than life personality, and it's tough loss. But I definitely think the game got everything out of him that he could. It's not like he passed away young. He passed away at 85. So
yeah, no, he lived a full life.
He lived a full life. The game got everything out of him.
Absolutely. Now, while the game did get everything out of him, I think the game should try to pay homage to him in effect. And I think the way they can do that is have him grace the cover of his iconic sports game once again this next year.
Sure.
I think that when Madden first came out and the Madden games came out from 1989, I think it was up till 2000. He was just the guy on the cover. It was like, all right, this is John Madden football. So you're going to see John Madden on the football game.
Right.
And you saw him from all those years, different iterations. I think the first one, he was like bursting through like some poster and kind of was energetic. And then later on, it was just like simpler versions of him kind of just standing, holding a football and doing whatnot. And then eventually they decided to put cover athletes on, and it has evolved over time to where now we have Tom Brady at 44 years old and Patrick Mahomes posing on a cover together. I think it would be really, really nice to see John Madden, I don't know if it's a Legends edition that you do or whatever. I'd like to see him on a Madden cover once again, just to pay homage to him next year.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea, or at least I think they'll probably do it, but honor him at the Super Bowl this, in a month or so.
100%.
I think they'll do something like that.
Yeah, no, he's definitely going to get some honor. I don't know if there's any other type of award you could really give to him, but I mean, he's
already in the Hall of Fame. He kind of has a lifetime achievement award. So
Oh, I meant name an award after him.
Oh, I see. I mean, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know if there's another kind of award that you could give out for that, but I think that he is fully deserving of one. I don't know if there's an MVP trophy that doesn't have a name yet, but he is just, or maybe, I don't know. Does the Coach of the Year award have a trophy?
I don't know. I was thinking maybe like Broadcaster of the Year. You could try to do that, something in that along those lines, or that could be a good remember he used to have. If you watch a documentary, he had that all Madden team back in the day, all the tough players that he liked. So maybe bring that back or something, or you do something like that.
Yeah, that should be a really cool one to have.
Yeah.
But man, I'd love to see him grace Madden 23. It's something that I've actually seen a lot of people online petitioning for to have happen. And I think it'd be a decent enough year to, next year would be probably a good year to have it happen. I mean, there are some guys that I think could still be deserving of getting on a Madden cover. Aaron Rodgers might be one of those guys. Russell Wilson could maybe get on a Madden cover. But Wilson this year was injured. Rodgers has kind of been in the middle of his thing, and we also don't know where he's going to really go next year. So I don't think they really want to take a chance on repeating the Brett Favre situation of Madden 09 and put a guy that's no longer on the team in the jersey that he's wearing. So I don't think they want to repeat that. So I think it's kind of a perfect situation. I can't really think of another guy to put on the cover for next year. So
yeah,
I'd love to see them do it.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But listen, it has been an amazing time talking with you, man. But unfortunately, now we are now down to the wire, which means that we're going to do a little run through of what we talked about in today's episode, and then we will send you guys off into the new year. But first things first, we welcomed in the host of the Too Tall Sports podcast, Brett Lorin. Brett, it was an amazing time having you on the show today, man. I hope to get you back in the future to do some sports talk down the line. But man, thank you so much for coming on today.
I appreciate it, Brian. You did a great job. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, let's do it again soon. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And for anyone who is maybe tuning in at a later time, we ended up talking with Brett today about his MLB career and talking about what he went through in the minor leagues, trying to get to the MLB and different things that came along with that. We talked about his personal origins, going through different levels and getting the chance to play, with some great teammates who ended up going on to the major leagues. We talked about his experience in the World Baseball Classic, and then everything that transpired when he decided to leave the game of baseball. After that, we talked about the NFL following the CDC guidelines and shortening their COVID protocols from 10 days now down to 5 days. Maybe we see it go shorter. I don't know if that's possible, but hey, here's hoping. But then after that, we ended up talking about the life of the late, great John Madden, absolute legend of the game of football, and he will be missed dearly. It was a great episode today. I hope that you guys end up following and liking and subscribing on everything that we're available on. We're available anywhere you guys can basically stream podcasts, whether that be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, YouTube. But the main hub that you guys can follow us on is our Instagram. You can follow that at down.tothewire again on Instagram, again at down.tothewire on the IG. Brett, I'll pass it off to you for anything that you want to shout out personally of yourself, and then we'll end it.
Sure. Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram at Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can also follow me on TikTok at Too Tall Sports Podcast. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports, but pretty much anywhere, just type in for YouTube, Apple, Spotify, just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. You'll find me there. I drop episodes every Thursday. So come check me out and give me a follow.
Absolutely, man. Well, it's been a great time having you on the show today, and we'll have to pick this up again soon. But from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
And I'm Brett Lorin.
And we hope that you guys have an amazing day. Take care. Peace out.